Look at his face.
I swear.
Welcome. Welcome to another episode of Queen3 King.
Yes.
We come to you with love, peace, and nobility. How y'all doing this evening? We on that chill mode, you know. I ain't had nothing to drink today. Don't worry about that. Today's topic, accountability 101. Accountability 101. Are we as a society accountable in general? Where does our community rank in terms of accountability in comparison to other communities and cultures? Is accountability even necessary or important to our lives, or are we just blowing it out of proportion? Who really cares? We'll find out on this episode of Queen3 King. And now for our co-host, fake energy. Now for our co-host out of Atlanta, Texas, hailing from East Garland, Texas.
Hailing, dang.
Yeah, the weather inspired me. Out of East Garland, Texas, standing at 5 foot 3 1/4 inches tall, also known as Boney Maroney, Skinny Minnie.
Ooh,
Take your time.
You take your time. Pray on it. Lord, be with me today, Lord. Hold on. Let me say a quick prayer. Lord, I come to you right now, Father.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Skinny Minnie, darling Nikki, Coco, the grandma herself. What up, Queen?
Hello. How y'all doing?
Wow.
Oh my.
That sounded too real. And next, voted Queen of Tulsa back in the 1900s.
Dang.
Standing at 5 foot 2 3/4 inches tall. The educator, Meba herself, talk to the people queen.
Hey everybody. I'm a little tired tonight, but I like Anita Baker. I'm gonna give you the best that I got.
You sound like Anita Baker. That husky voice today, boy. You like you trying to bark at somebody or something. Just calm down. Wow. 365 days of the year. I got the same old loving baby.
Hey,
that was good.
And last but certainly not least.
Certainly.
Voted Queen of Okmulgee just 4 years after Mika was voted Queen of Tulsa. Standing at 5 foot 3 inches tall. Blake Mama, the baby queen, Lily. What up, Queen?
Hey, family.
Hey.
All right, that was probably the most genuine hey family out of all the three. But we still working on them, y'all.
My hello was good.
Yeah, let's say that.
Hey, Maria.
Hey, Maria on the line saying hey,
Hey,
family.
Maria. Hey, Brittany.
Hey, Brittany.
That ain't Weeda.
Howdy, ain't Weeda.
Howdy.
She been on that cowgirl stuff. I guess the Black Rodeo in town soon.
Come
And
on.
then we got Big Illinois in the house.
All right.
Peace and blessings. What's up, Big Illinois? All right. So accountability 101. Are we as a society accountable in general? That's the first question we're going to tackle. And we're going to start with the baby queen today. Are we as a society accountable in general?
No, we're not.
Why don't you think about it for a little while? So why are we not?
I think a lot of times we don't take responsibility for what we've done to add to the situation. It's always somebody else. We play the blame game a lot and don't take accountability for our actions. I think I always talk to my associates about taking accountability and being accountable. That's one of our competencies that we talk about. And that's something that a lot of people struggle with on a daily. I'm like, well, why didn't this happen? Because X, Y, and Z. But what did you do to prevent that from happening?
Right.
So I think as a society, we definitely don't take accountability.
Number one, come through competencies. See, look at that. Somebody right there with me. Come on, competency. But it was one more. It was one more high scoring word in there. Who want to jump in with that one?
Gino.
What was that other $7 word you used?
I don't know. I don't even know what I said. I can't even remember.
I don't know.
Go back and watch the tape. But let me just say this. What it made me think is that if you don't know this about Queen 3 and King, know this today. We can thrive in the White House or the trap house.
Hello.
On what conversation we want to have.
Okay.
Huh?
And let the church say amen.
Amen.
All right. It's the competencies for me. All right. Mika, are we as a society accountable in general? Do you differ?
I do not differ.
Do you need a drink or something?
Yeah, you need a drink of water.
I need to gargle or something with that right quick, man.
She needs that saltwater gargle.
Oh,
I'm like a little, y'all, I've been hoarse and talking all day and stuff.
You a little horse? You say you're a little horse? I'd rather be a little horse than a big horse. She tried. She didn't want to laugh at that.
I did.
And she wanted to stick up a finger. But God stepped in.
Yeah. You're talking like it's humid over there or something.
It's okay. It's going to be fine. It's going to get better throughout the show.
Okay.
No, I do not differ, because if we're accountable, that means we have to go back and reevaluate our actions.
Mm-hmm.
So and a lot of people don't like doing that or don't see why they should do that. And so I don't think we're accountable as a society, because it causes us to have to do other things to fix whatever is wrong. So that's just my take on it.
Okay. Give me just a moment. I try to take notes throughout the course of the show when it inspires me for more.
Come on,
no. And so therefore, as a result, this is a pen. As a result, I was trying to kill some time and I forgot what I was writing down. Hold on. Pride. Okay. So basically what I'll do with these is if we don't get to them, this will be our part 2, because this may go somewhere.
Okay.
All right. All right. Wonderful. I already got a couple for today. All right. We'll get a couple of comments before we go to Anna, Texas, to get her thoughts. Okay. Wait a minute. I'm just going to say something to our viewers. If you're not friends with Miss Ashanique, she been cooking a lot lately. I don't know if it's the school done started back.
She gets down too.
She's trying to secure some stuff at the house. So either way, she's been cooking. Brittany said, with accountability, there comes responsibility. And folks show out there not taking either one.
Neither.
Right. Here we go. By choosing not to get the clothes vaccine, you are not accountable.
She coming through shooting.
Shots fired. All right. Out to Anna, Texas, and darling Nikki, are we as a society accountable in general?
No, I agree with both my sisters. We are not accountable. Again, accountability does take responsibility for your actions, which means that there's consequences that's tied to those actions. And so therefore we don't take accountability as we should, not in our community.
Okay. I just noticed this background. Did you move to a different spot in the house?
Yes, I had to, because I had.
There ain't nothing but white walls.
I didn't have enough light in the other room today.
Okay. Well,
that mind your business.
Is that a problem?
That's all about your business.
Start running that stuff by me next time.
Oh, why?
Tell them to mind your business.
Yes.
Actually, says I'm feeling good. SpaghettiOs next week.
I know that's right.
All right. Natasha Stevenson. Hey, y'all. Yeah, she been funny about them honey buns, too. Let me just say this. You done had a good run with that honey bun joke series that you're bringing out. I don't know if you plan on going on tour to the improvs across the country with it or what, but all right, you done had a good run.
Natasha, keep it going.
Let's see. H Rap, Brian Williams, a good evening, Queens, Team Leo, King
Come
Dog.
on, Leo.
What's going on? And this, you same thing with this Team Leo, Mr. Williams. You done had a good run. Y'all ain't got but about 3 more days, don't you?
Yes. But guess what? We understood the assignment and we aced the assignment, okay?
Right.
Look at that.
Hey, honey buns.
Keep on here.
Yeah, Natasha, that's good.
All right. So for me, easy answer. Are we as a society accountable in general? Absolutely not. And we, and again, I specifically posed that question that way for a reason, to say, are we as a society accountable in general? Because we are part of that society. Yeah, we can all think of times, well, I owned up to it here, I owned up to it there. But in general, for the most part, we are not accountable. We don't own our part in whatever the issue may be, whether it be something individual with our workplace, whether it be something in our relationship, whether it be something that we contribute to as a society as a whole. We don't do a good job in taking and sharing part in the problem. We good at identifying the problem, but we're not that good in identifying how we contributed to it. Let's see. Ben Suttereth III, he put the BS in BS3 radio. Them honey bun jokes have been funny. Yeah. All right. And that reminds me and everybody that's listening, on August the 30th, we are having, and Ben, correct me if the date is wrong, we are having our BS3 radio awards, and I think this is I can't remember how many years in a row. Ben, you can put that in the comments, some more details about the awards that are coming up on August the 30th, and you want to tune into this. I promise you, it's going to be at 8:00 that Monday on August the 30th, and you want to tune into this because Queen3 King was nominated for 2 awards, I believe, and if we don't win at least one, I'm storming the podium. You hear me? You think Kanye do some stuff? Watch. Let us not win one and watch, see what happens. I'm storming the and all you gonna hear is a bunch of the microphone. The camera gonna be doing all this, and Ben gonna be saying, dog. So just get ready. All right. Second annual. That ain't enough, man. Say some other stuff. I know it's a second annual. All right. Next question. Where does our community rank in terms of accountability in comparison to other communities and cultures? Again, our community, which happens to be the African American community, the Black community, the hood, wherever you want to call it, where do we rank in comparison to other communities and cultures? We're going to start in Atlanta, Texas.
Way down low.
That's where we rank. Ooh, come with this. H-Rap, get ready. H-Rap, get ready.
Ignorant. And that's right, ignorant. Just like that.
The podium.
Every day.
There you go. That's better, man. Dog, act like you doing something. All right.
Man, don't do that to you.
All right. We way low. Why that? Talk to me. Elaborate.
Again, like I said earlier, we all have obligation to take responsibility, but we choose not to.
Okay. And you think other cultures and communities?
I'm not saying that other cultures don't have those issues. I think the majority of them do.
Okay.
But how can I put this without?
Speak freely.
No, I don't want to like.
Don't be scared.
I don't want to be rude to anyone's culture. That's what I'm saying. I want to. You
ain't gonna get canceled. This is family talk.
I'm just saying. I just believe that our culture are just we're low on the totem pole, along with a couple of other cultures.
Yeah.
One meaning some of our Hispanic brothers and sisters.
I knew it.
And I have some friends who are of the Caucasian that are Caucasians that they too don't always take responsibility the majority of the time. So I think that it's probably about like 45%, 50% of us that don't take accountability.
Mm-hmm. All right, and this is a good time to remind everybody because I immediately said, H-Rap, get ready. I need your true response on here, right? So this is a time where I remind everybody. I should have did it at the first of the show, but we foster an environment, an atmosphere of positive disagreement. We're not going to always agree on whatever the topic may be, right? Whether we're discussing religion, whether we're discussing accountability, whether we're discussing music, whatever, we're not going to always agree, right? But this is a positive environment for that disagreement. At least we had the discussion, and we practice and try to get better at listening to understand as opposed to listening to respond, right?
Right.
Because if you listen to respond, you ain't heard nothing. Right. All right. So she thinks we're at the bottom of the totem pole in comparison to some other cultures, except the Mexicans. Okay.
I didn't just say
that's basically what she said. Yeah.
Well, take it however you want to take it. I'm just in my mind. You don't have to agree like you just said.
Okay. Oh yeah. I'm finna top it up with you. I'm finna top it up with you. Don't make me storm your podium. All right.
I'll pay somebody today.
Yeah. All right. I'm Mika B. Where does our community rank in terms of accountability in comparison to other communities and cultures?
I think we rank pretty low, but only because I think in our community, accountability is a 4-letter word. I think accountability is comes with a negative connotation. And accountability also has to do with being able to put down your pride, which is something else our community is not able to do. So I would say we rank low because it's not taught, and accountability to me has to be taught. It has to be learned, and it has to be understood that it can be a positive thing. And if we show how when you take accountability, it turns into positive reaction, because accountability comes with consequences, and not all consequences are bad.
Right.
So I would say it has to be learned and it has to be taught. And if our community is not teaching it, how do our kids and our future generations know that what accountability is, how to take it, and how to be able to receive it?
And that's something that starts at home when your kids are little.
Yep.
All right. And so you said something about a 4-letter word. What do you mean by the 4-letter word?
Accountability can be, 4-letter words are bad. So accountability can be bad to some people.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. And Lily, what do you got on it? Where does our community rank in terms of accountability in comparison to other communities and cultures?
I think it's lower as well, but I think that it also, like Mika.
Come on through chat room. Okay, go ahead, keep talking.
I think Mika and Nikki made good points in saying that it's something that's taught. Like when you stole those honey buns, Mama told you to be accountable for your action, and that was the consequence of having to go down.
Hang on. Let me remove her from the studio right quick. Let me just cut her out. When you're ready to behave, raise your hand when you're ready to act right, and you'll get brought back in. Yeah. Act right. Go ahead.
No, but for real, I think it's one of those things of, in our community, we like to be accountable when it looks good. So, if something good came from that, I was the one who did that, or I did that, let me be accountable for that. But when it's something negative, we don't want to take accountability for it because it's a negative response. But that can also be a teacher moment. I always say that. Take accountability. It can be a teacher moment. It can be something that you learn from it. So,
all right, we got some good comments in the chat room. I'm gonna get to a couple of other ones there, but first, this is a reaction to me cutting Lily out by Natasha and by Brian A-Trap.
It might be about raising my hand.
No, it wasn't about that. And then Sabrina Looney said, "Good evening, Incredibles." I'm gonna get to a couple of other good comments from Brittany and from Derek here in just a moment. But for me, where does our community rank in terms of accountability in comparison to other communities or cultures? My thought is right about the same. I don't think that we rank lower than they do. I think we see what we do more because we are in our community more than we're in others' communities, right? In addition to that, now I didn't know whether I wanted to take this to part 2. but I'm gonna this particular part of it, I'm gonna try to keep here if I can. To a certain extent, don't we get more motivation to be accountable? Lily made me think about this when she said, when I stole those honey buns, I'm gonna make sure I was accountable. How many times, a lot of the instructions that we were given based on not embarrassing our mom or our family name or whatever the case may be, right? Don't get out there in them streets and act no fool. Well, why was that? Were they more concerned about us getting in trouble? Or were they more concerned about, now I got to talk about you up there stealing honey buns or whatever the case may be, right? And isn't that a form of accountability? Weren't we accountable to them right off the bat? In our community, discipline at the home ranks relatively high in comparison to other communities.
Right. Oh, yeah, right? I think so.
So as a result, we're kind of taught accountability at an early age. And accountability does not necessarily mean being accountable to ourselves. It maybe means being accountable to someone else. Okay. And so from an early age, I think accountability was kind of put in us, to a certain extent. Now, at the same time, on the other side of the coin, did them ass whooping scare us into not being one to be accountable? Right. You know what I'm saying? And maybe now that's why we hesitate in terms of being accountable, because those repercussions of being accountable come on through. Repercussions, come on. Maybe those repercussions were so damaging that now we hesitate in terms of that accountability. Maybe positive reinforcement, Wilma Jean, would have been the way to go.
Don't do that, because she's not out here today. These honey buns.
Here go a case like I did Blake. I didn't want Blake to be like me. I brought him a case of them big ones. Maybe that's
Are you kidding? Are you kidding?
Yeah. Did he get shake voice?
Yeah. Of course. All right. So now let's get to a couple of these good comments. Brittany Smith says, I think our community is good at sweeping things under the rug or always giving passes.
Yeah, I think
some of that is in our nature, right? We've talked about that a lot on the forecast. And if you're not watching the forecast on Monday nights at 9 p.m. for a unique way that we review films and documentaries and movies and stuff like that, you are missing it, because we come at it. This ain't your Siskel and Ebert. I promise, this ain't your daddy movie review. This is something different. And one of the things we talked about is how we as a culture are some of the most forgiving folks that have ever walked the face of the earth, right? Think about what we've been through, right? Yeah, we got certain segments of populations that may have some big time problems with our white brothers and sisters based on past and stuff like that. But if you look at it as a whole, we're some forgiving jokers. And you think a certain sect of us, man, if you really, really examine it, we probably ought to be pretty pissed off in a whole different way, at the systematic situation that has gone on to try to keep us at a certain, we ought to be more pissed off than we are, if you want to know the truth, right? Yeah. But we are some forgiving folks. So yeah, giving passes is 100% right. I think that's an excellent point. And then Derek follows that up with another fantastic point.
Yeah.
He says, I would think whites have low accountability due to privilege. That is a fantastic point, right? And again, privilege should be considered something different, right? Privilege does not necessarily mean, this is one thing that, matter of fact, if you just talk about privilege alone, right? That culture is not accountable when you talk about that subject alone, because they immediately defend themselves thinking that privilege is their fault. Whenever we talk to people about privilege or we bring up the word privilege, it doesn't mean you at fault for it. When you get privilege, sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean you did anything to get it. So how could it be your fault?
What you do with it?
How could it be your fault to be privileged? That's not what we're saying, but you have it, right? So there's no accountability there, and maybe not even a lot of hearing there, because they're listening to respond because they don't like what it sounds like. I didn't get no jump, I didn't get no head start, or whatever the case may be, as opposed to trying to understand what the thought process is. So that is a fantastic point.
Yeah, I didn't think that.
No accountability due to privilege. Fantastic.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
And I enjoy Derek's talk on Mondays, Facebook. I don't know other platforms, Derek, you want to put it on there. Man Talk Monday. You know, we be getting some women mad, and like John said, this man talk Monday. If you don't want to listen to it, you know, we talking, we letting y'all listen to us talk. Yeah, so yeah, that's some good stuff. Didn't nobody ask whether you slapped your knee or nothing.
Oh my God.
Derek also said, I'm thinking about the practice and concept of whipping boys. The practice and concept of whipping boys. Talk to us a little bit more about that. I believe I know where you're going with that, but don't want to make any assumptions. Give us a little bit more detail on that. Yeah, and the response of Derek's comment, J-Trap said, I would say 0, Derek.
He agrees hard with that.
Yeah, Derek, yes, for sure on the show. And give us a little bit more specific there. And what we need to do, actually, I was actually thinking about this last night. We need to do a Man Talk Monday and Queen3 King crossover show where we have both of y'all on and we discuss one of those, man. We're going to let y'all set the topic. Get with me, you know, what kind of questions we want to discuss and stuff like that. And we're going to do it y'all style. So let's have a little crossover show. If Knots Landing and Dallas can have a crossover show, so can we. And if you're old enough to understand that, holla at me. Okay, cool. All right. So our next conversation, and in just a moment, let's see what we're doing on time. Yeah, in just a few more minutes after this question, we will we'll move into the Streets Are Talking segment. And let's see, Derek kind of elaborated on it. He goes, whipping boys will take the whipping for you in the effort to teach you a lesson. Okay, that's where I thought you were going with it, right? So again, he says he think about the practice and concept of whipping boys. So they didn't want to take the accountability. The whipping boys took the brunt for them, okay? And and I myself have been in a situation where I've been put in a scapegoat position several times on some jobs and stuff like that. You know, and I called him out like, hey, it ain't me. Don't use me as a scapegoat. You know, I'm not having it.
And he makes me think about another thing. Have we taken accountability for so long that it's now not a positive thing? Now it's negative. And we don't face those consequences because we have been the whipping boys or whatever the case may be. So maybe we don't want to take accountability anymore because we haven't seen the positive come from it.
Yeah.
All right. Next question, is accountability even necessary or important in our lives? Is accountability even necessary or important in our lives? Lily, we'll start with you.
Yes, I think it is. I think it teaches us that we have to be accountable for every move that we make, whether it be good or bad. So like we said it before, consequences come along with actions that we choose to take. And you have to be accountable in all aspects of that. I think it's good in teaching it. And like you said, it goes back to us being kids and being taught accountability. Sometimes those situations can hurt, you know, and so you do have me thinking about the other side of that. Sometimes the way we carry out accountability in our household, is that going to hurt them in the future, or is it going to cause them to do well? So it's definitely necessary for sure.
All right. Mika, what you got? Is accountability even necessary or important in our lives?
I think it's very necessary. That's where accountability partners come in different areas of life, whether it be with Bible studies, with marriages, with exercise. You need accountability partners so they can hold you accountable, so they can keep you where you think you need to be, or where they can say, hey, you know you're wrong, or hey, you know this, or you need to do this to do that. So I think accountability is needed and accountability partners are needed as well, just to help us keep our lives, kind of in order, or so that we have somebody who can say, hey, did you think about this? Hey, did you think about that? Or, if you do this, this can happen. So I think accountability is very important to have in our lives.
Yeah. And you exercise accountability partner, y'all suck. Because y'all got a lot of people out here that ain't doing it for.
I didn't say we were doing
it. Yeah, y'all need to get more accountable. All right. And we go north to Anna, Texas. Is accountability even necessary or important in our lives? Yes, Mika and Lily are out of their mind. Accountability ain't important, is it?
No, it is definitely important. Very important. And I was thinking the same before Mika even said anything about the accountability partner. I was thinking about, okay, my accountability partners, because I have accountability partners that I reach out to when I feel like, did I do the right thing here? Or did I, was my actions actually warranted, or did I do the wrong thing? So I do think that accountability partners are very important to us to keep us on track, and to make sure that we're doing things the right way, and that we are, even if we are thinking that we're not accountable, then when you tell your story to that person, okay, well, this happened and this is what my response was, you may think that you did the right thing, but that accountability partner, you want that partner to be able to tell you, no, that wasn't right. I'm sorry, girl, you my girl or whatever, but no, you were wrong with that. You need to go back and do X, Y, and Z. So it's very important to have accountability partners and somebody that you can talk to and let them, steer you in the right direction. But they got to be a real, true partner.
Right. Yeah. And in order for them to be a real true partner, you got to be able to tell them real true events.
Right. Got to be.
You can't tell them what you want to tell them when you want to tell them, and then tell them your side of the story. You got to give it to them raw so they can give it to you raw. Right. And that's part of communication. If you're not communicating with them, setting parameters up front, and that kind of thing, it ain't gonna work if it ain't true. Right. So yeah, of course I agree with the panel. It is necessary, it is important, and self-examination period is important, right? So accountability in my mind leads to, especially self-accountability, right? It leads to, you can't be true to yourself. You don't know who yourself are. See, there's a saying out there, you believe a lie, right? You done told a lie so many times that you start to believe it, right? So in order to be truly accountable, you have to be true to yourself. And if you're not accountable at the end of the day, you are not being true to yourself. And the version of you that you're looking at in the mirror ain't the real deal, So again, accountability is extremely important. Justin says accountability equals growth.
Right.
Right. And Derek says, definitely, let's do the crossover show. So yeah, we will definitely do that. And now that brings us to our next segment. And give me just a minute because I'm struggling over here.
We see. Struggle.
Streets are talking.
That's
the streets are talking, Lily. What they saying?
They are talking, and I'm gonna start off with a little fun or a little question that's been floating around Black Twitter, especially. So, it was an interview done, and it was Michael B. Jordan, and they compared him to this generation's Denzel Washington. So the question came about, do you think that Michael B. Jordan is this generation's Denzel Washington? I want to get y'all's take on that. What do you think?
I think we just lost our generation's Denzel Washington.
Chadwick Boseman?
Mm-hmm.
You think so?
Mm-hmm. Chadwick was it.
I think Michael B. Jordan is really complex in his catalog as well. I think each role that you give him.
He is,
but I still feel like I have to agree with you, Mika, too, about Chadwick. I think that he would have been the next one.
How so? Let's talk about what he's done.
Yeah, I kind of want to hear more about that.
Let's
he was great. Do not get me wrong.
Yeah,
both of them are.
Yeah, no slight to Michael B. Jordan at all. Hallelujah. When you say his name, he fine.
All right, Lord, listening.
Fine. He fine and all. But he is a good actor. Maybe I should say give him a little while longer to.
No, I need you to make the case for for Chadwick Boseman, not take away from Michael B. Jordan. Make your case for Chadwick Boseman, because I need to hear this. I would have never considered it.
You would have never considered Chadwick?
No.
With some of the stuff, like he's done from Jackie Robinson to the superhero. Like he's done.
And what's in the middle?
But I think the thing with Chadwick Boseman is no one talked about Chadwick until Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
And what's in the
really
middle?
Didn't. He wasn't out there like that.
It was one movie. What's in the middle? Was it?
See, so that's my point.
It's forgettable.
Thank you.
You can't remember.
Thank you.
Okay,
What's the name of the
name
movie?
me three Michael B. Jordan films.
Creed.
3.
Creed
Black
2.
Panther, since you used one, Black Panther.
Yeah.
Creed 2.
Creed.
That's all I know.
And it was another one that just came out on HBO Max. I cannot remember the name, but it was
another one coming out. Another one about to come out.
It was another one. I can't think of it. I can't think of the name, but we watched it on HBO Max, and it was a great movie.
I watched it with you.
Who was Draft Day?
Draft Day. Who is that, Derek?
I don't know if I've seen that one.
I haven't seen Draft Day. Who is that?
It's Chadwick Boseman. I'm hollering.
Here you go.
If it's Chadwick Boseman, I'm hollering. If that Draft Day is his movie and Mika just was preaching. But I think the thing that I
wait a minute, Lily. Let me go and get this. Just Mercy with him.
And he was in Hardball.
450 Fahrenheit 451. Again, Creed and Creed 2.
So
he was in Hardball, Black Panther. He was in Ken, Fantastic Four.
But you didn't know that.
I didn't know he was in no Fantastic
I don't think it's his catalog. I just think
his acting
of his roles that he's played.
That's where I was going to go. Not only the complexity of his role, but also, I got to give. So Draft Day was Boseman. 21 Bridges.
You didn't even know.
Draft Day was Boseman. 21 Bridges is good. I
haven't seen that Draft
But
Day.
see, here's the deal. Here's the deal for me. And he says too early to call him the next Denzel. I don't think so. We're calling him the next.
He's Michael B. Jordan, the question.
And where I would go is who else would you say if not him, right? And so Michael B. Jordan, we had talked about him on the God dang it. We were getting there, and we talked to him about that on the forecast, right? We had this discussion, right? We talk about it frequently. BS3 Radio says Michael B. Jordan is getting there, but he's not the Denzel level yet. Again, we were saying the next. You got to give him Mama Rainey or whatever.
I don't think they're saying he's Denzel today. I think they're saying he's grooming to
be
generation.
I'm going to tell you another thing. It's not just Denzel's acting chops, right? It is the combination of sex symbol and your catalog and things of that nature. So it's a combination, right? And Chadwick Boseman, where he might be attractive to some, is he universally seen the way Michael B. Jordan is universally seen? And also, are you trying to give, is Chad Boseman getting some credits to you, getting some credits from you because he's no longer with us? Truthfully speaking, getting some sympathy points?
Not sympathy points. I'm going to say, I think I started paying attention more to his work after he passed.
And appreciating it more, maybe?
Appreciating it more.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think he's absolutely phenomenal. I think that's absolutely phenomenal, but I think that just Michael B. Jordan, the way he can play kind of any role, that's big. And he's still really young and has a long time in Hollywood, I think that he has just done a really, really good job in his roles.
Well, I'm going to give you somebody to pay closer attention to.
Cool.
So we're talking about the next Denzel Washington. How about somebody with the last name Washington, and that's his dad? They call John David Washington. Go back and pay attention to him. Starting with my first thing that I saw him in was Ballers, Tenant, and now he's coming out with this movie Beckett. He's been in a couple of others. John David Washington may be the next Denzel Washington, right? His daddy's thing, right? And you want to talk about his range? He has come up frequently in the forecast and some of our reviews and deciding what we were going to go to next, we have all been equally impressed with his range. Now I think he falls in the same category as Bozeman. He's not universally revered as Michael B. Jordan is, but nonetheless, that boy he's standing up and he's getting some big time roles. I mean, some blockbuster. You know, Tenet for a while was the only blockbuster out there. You know, and he was on it. You know, coming out of the pandemic and stuff like that. And if I'm not mistaken, that was nominated for several awards as well. So yeah, I would put John David Washington right now. I would even put him over Chadwick Boseman, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think
you talk about Michael B. Jordan.
No, I was putting him over Chadwick Boseman, and I was going to say, and I think he could give Michael B. Jordan a run for his money. Unfortunately, that he doesn't have the sex symbol icon status. I don't think he'll reach that, right? But I think he needs to be in the conversation.
Okay, good question. Okay, I have one more story. Y'all have anything else on that one? Cool. So we had talked about, I guess it's been a few months now, we talked about Porsha Williams, right, from the Real Housewives of Atlanta, how she started dating her friends.
He tried to say you need a doctorate to understand Tenet. That's true.
How she started dating
who got Michael B. Jordan, John David Washington or
I think he's talking about John David Washington.
Okay. All right, you said okay.
Okay, so Porsha, she was under a lot of fire about a few months ago because she was said to be dating her castmate friend husband, right? So he came out and said during that whole fiasco, like, Porsha has nothing to do with us separating. Fallon is a cheater. And she's been cheating. She's been sneaking this guy to the house. He also had pictures of the guy on the security camera, everything, right? So it comes out, I think it was a couple hours before the podcast tonight, that Fallon is pregnant. She is pregnant by her now boyfriend that she said was her friend. So it proves, they think Black Twitter is trying to vindicate Porsha at this point, saying, see, Porsha didn't have nothing to do with them. Fallon was already cheating. I think they were both cheating in their marriage.
Of course.
And it's starting to kind of blossom into more than what it is. But everybody is trying to say at this point, Fallon is not the victim. She was out there busting it open. I'm using words for Twitter. So she was busting it open, and now she is pregnant, and she did all that crying, that fake crying on the internet to gain sympathy while she was out there cheating. And Simon said she was cheating with this dude, and y'all would soon find out. And she is now pregnant. So this is going to be her fourth child because she had 3 other children from a previous marriage and his first. But she said this was just a friend that was helping her through her hard times. But it looks like he really helped her through her hard time.
Okay. Before the hard times came.
And wasn't it the recently dearly departed Biz Markie who sung Just a Friend?
Yes.
Ironically.
So they were doing more than comforting each other.
Yeah.
Definitely clown stuff. So I thought that was a funny follow-up to what we talked about with Porsha. So I think Porsha is probably going to post some scripted messages trying to say I told you so, but she was still wrong too. So I don't care what she says, you were wrong too.
Yeah, all of it is you said she was being fake or whatever. A lot of it is a lot of fakeness in it, and all of it.
Yeah, you're right, Derek.
Yes, Derek.
Yeah, she did. All right, and this has been another edition of The Streets of Talking.
Yes.
All right, so back to Accountability 101. Okay, so our next angle on this is from a spiritual perspective. Does accountability and forgiveness commingle? Is it easier to forgive someone who is being accountable? And how does accountability affect our own forgiveness? I'm going to read that again because there's a lot to unpack there. From a spiritual perspective, does accountability and forgiveness commingle? Is it easier to forgive someone who is being accountable? And how does accountability affect our own forgiveness? And let's start with Mika.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I caught you not paying attention. See, I'm the educator too.
I was thinking.
Yeah, well, go on. Tell us what you were thinking.
I was thinking, because I was trying to,
Look at this fool.
Up and down,
and in and out.
Stop.
Okay, you can leave now. You can leave now. You've accomplished whatever your goal is. Brandy Love.
Yeah, he cut off now.
It's a great question. Again, to give you some more time, from a spiritual perspective, does accountability and forgiveness commingle? Is it easier to forgive someone who is being accountable? And how does accountability affect our own forgiveness?
So, accountability and forgiveness do work together, I believe, because I'm accountable for my forgiveness, or if I forgive that person. So, forgiveness is I'm accountable for it on my part. Now, when you go in and say, does it make it easier to forgive somebody because they are accountable? No. Because emotions are in place. Now, it depends on what they did. Now, what am I forgiving you for? That's a question that I have. What am I forgiving you for? How is this going to affect me, tomorrow? I don't know, y'all.
Okay, fair enough. So I'll get back to that in a second because I'm gonna chop it up with you on that. Lily, what you got?
I don't know.
Does accountability and forgiveness commingle? Is it easier to forgive someone who is being accountable? And how does accountability affect our own forgiveness?
I do think they commingle, and I say that because I think in order for me or for you to truly forgive somebody or truly come to grips with maybe a situation that has happened, they have to take some accountability or vice versa. So I think, like Mika said, it may hurt a little bit more. And when you're trying to forgive them, that may be a tougher pill to swallow based on the situation.
Yeah.
But if you're accountable and you came to me, letting me know this is what happened, and it's the truth, and I can feel if I pray about the situation, I always pray about situations before I react now, because I used to just be one to react. And so I like to digest it and, truly feel like, God, if this is not what it should be, show me different. But that person, I think they have to take accountability and responsibility, and me, vice versa. Or if it's me, because I hate when somebody says, I apologize if I made you feel. Because that's truly not an apology. It's not that you made me feel, but what did you do? So don't sugarcoat it with me like, I apologize if you felt like this. Well, you know what happened. So you know how you said it, even if you didn't mean it that way. Just say, I said it this way. That's not true. That's truly not how I meant for it to come out, and then move forward. But I think accountability, you have to take responsibility and really be genuine in your response to that person.
Okay. Nick and Nicole.
Yes, I think that they do commingle. I also think that when someone is accountable for their actions and they're taking responsibility for their actions, I think it is easier to forgive that person because they've shown you, because I know that could be hard for somebody to do, to come to you and just lay that all out there like that. So I think it's definitely easier to forgive them if they take accountability for their actions and just come to you and say, hey, I'm sorry that I did X, Y, and Z to you. I take accountability for it. I'm wrong for what happened, and I accept the consequences that may come from this. You can forgive them, but you may not still want a relationship with them. So
emotions and all this stuff.
Yeah, so there's different ways that could play out, but but I think that it's easier to forgive someone if they're genuine in their when they come to you for forgiveness, when they take accountability.
Right. Absolutely. I think number one, from a spiritual perspective, accountability and forgiveness are intertwined. They are one without the other. Ain't gonna work 9 times out of 10, right? In fact, being accountable is the number one ingredient necessary for forgiveness, right? For us receiving forgiveness, right? The majority of us on the all of us on the panel and the majority of us in the chat room are Christians, right? And so from a Christian perspective, in order to be forgiven, you have to confess, right? And you can't confess if you're not being accountable. Confession is accountability, right? I did it. Okay. Yep. So of course they commingle. And so that answers the first and the last part of that question. How does accountability affect our own forgiveness? If you ain't being accountable, you ain't being forgiven. You just simply have to confess, right? The word says, if you confess of your sins, he will be faithful and just to forgive you of your sins and cleanse you of all unrighteousness. So accountability is paramount in that, right? And is it easier to forgive someone who is being accountable? Absolutely. Right. So think about it. Somebody is not being accountable versus somebody who's being accountable, who's going to be easier to forgive. It doesn't matter what they've done. Right. I didn't say it's easy to forgive, but it is easier. Right. When one is being accountable versus one is not being accountable. Prove me wrong. Mika, you show chopping it up. That mind is racing over there. You got anything new?
No, I'm just saying.
Sweaty, like Eminem said, mom spaghetti. What is it?
No, it is easier to forgive that person that comes to you and says, "This is what I've done. I apologize," and they try to change their action. Versus somebody who's saying, "I don't know, maybe I." So yes, that's easier. I got a lot of thought behind it. But go ahead.
Look at this. I just tuned in, and what did you do this weekend? Wow. What does that got to do with the price of tea in China? God.
She's holding you accountable, Mika.
Let's see. You have to forgive them regardless. Don't allow them to have a sense of control in your mindset. God gets the glory and you get the growth. All right. Again, and we have to be careful in this forgiveness thing. So again, remember, forgiveness is huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, huge. And hold on, before I finish this. Yeah, I know that's your sister, and I know. I know. That's the devil egg lady. Forgiveness. And baby, Mika got into something with that look.
Oh, she was trying to say no.
So forgiveness, we got to be careful about that, right? Because we'll talk a lot about what they did, and it depends on what they did, and all that other kind of stuff. All these qualifiers, right?
Yes.
And we got to be careful with those qualifiers because at the end of the day, we got to forgive. And we have a tendency to try to make excuses as to why we're not going to forgive just yet. We'll acknowledge, I know I'm supposed to forgive, but you just don't know. I know I'm supposed to forgive, but I ain't ready yet. I know it ain't about being ready. It ain't about being whatever, right? Sometimes you got to fake it till you make it, and you got to say the words, and say the words and say the words. If we can lie to ourselves on all these other, to make ourselves feel a certain way there, why can't you lie yourself on something positive and say, okay, I forgive you, even though you don't feel it yet? But the reality is that you want to, right? Because it's the right thing to do, so why not go ahead and you shall have what you say and start saying it, and then you can start feeling it.
Look at his face. He gets on my nerves.
All right. Anybody else got anything on that?
See, I just like what you said about the qualifiers. Sometimes people will throw in those qualifiers, or people who take accountability and say, "But you got to forgive me because I told you the truth."
Right.
You have to watch that as well. I'm like,
This joker just do not want to forgive somebody.
No.
You gotta
No,
forgive.
Terry
Let
gonna
me
say
put it
that
like
lie
this.
to these people. Don't he lying? I forgive. He lying. But I'm just saying, being the devil's advocate. Just because they are accountable doesn't make it easier for that person to forgive. That's all I'm saying.
No, whoa. Wait a minute. You just contradicted yourself because earlier you said it is easier to forgive.
No, it's easier, but you shouldn't be able to play off that part, because some people say, well, I'm holding myself accountable. You should be able to get over it.
Yeah, but right now, see, that's another thing too, right? We do not want to focus on what they are doing or what they are saying or what they are. We can't control that. Right. We can't. We can only control our situation. So the people that need to be forgiven, I mean, the facts are they need to be forgiven in the first place, right? So that means they did something, right? So they are flawed. We know that, right? So those flaws don't go away all of a sudden just because we forgive them. But again, we are concentrating on us and our greater good and our responsibilities and our, what we're required to do. And so as a result, we can't consider what they are doing or what they're not doing or what they're whatever. We got to do whatever we need to do. And in addition, you got to remember that forgiveness does not mean giving continued access, right?
Yeah.
We forgave you,
that access.
But I don't need to continue to put myself in a position for you to do what it is that you've done, right?
That's right.
And also, if someone does something to you that is illegal and requires some consequence, whether it be with the law and stuff like that, you can forgive somebody, but not necessarily saying you don't have to be punished by the law, right? You robbed me, I forgive you, and I'm gonna go testify on your behalf. It's not saying you got to go testify on their behalf. It's just saying
don't you dare put no money on their book.
Now that you could do, you just gonna drop the charges, Yeah, we're not saying drop the charges, we're saying you forgive, right?
Yeah.
Not based on what they do. What if they are accountable for their actions, but they continue to do the same thing? It could cut deep and make it harder. Again.
Yep.
So Bible scripture, so this sounds like a question that one of the disciples asked Jesus. He was talking about forgiveness, right? And they kept saying, but Jesus, what if this? What if he keep doing this? What if he keep doing that? Well, the bottom line is that he said, how often should I forgive my brother? 7 times 70, right? So you could, if they keep doing so, if you keep putting yourself in a position to allow them to continue to do something, right? And sometimes you have no control over whether you put them in a position or not. That just may be the way it is, right? They have access because they have access, right? And if that's the case, again, you forgive until you run out of it. It's just what it is. And again, we're not talking about the ease of forgiveness, right? There are some ways that you can make forgiveness easier, which is a whole nother topic, right? We're simply talking about the necessities and the requirements, et cetera, because you forgiving others is part of your own accountability.
Yeah, like they always say, forgiveness is for you, not for others. Right. So
that's 100% right.
Yeah.
Say that again. Say that again. Say that again.
Yeah.
You think you're doing them a favor by forgiving them. You're doing yourself a favor.
Oh, yeah.
The word says, and unless you forgive, while you standing here praying, you can save that prayer. The word specifically says, don't even pray if you got unforgiveness in your heart for somebody.
Yeah.
You can save it. That's why I tell everybody I talk to about this topic in real life. I ask them things like, okay, what are your goals and aspirations in life? What do you want to become? What do you want? I want a successful business, and I want a larger house, and I want, a bigger car, and I want, to overcome this sickness and disease that I have. And I want all these things. And then I'm saying, and that's why you need to forgive. Because you can keep your prayer in your pocket if you ain't gonna forgive. It's that simple. It's hard, but it's fair. That's what the rules of the game are.
Yeah.
You forgive. Save the prayer. You might well go on and get your 5 extra minutes of sleep.
Yeah.
And save your knees. Don't even get down on them. If you ain't I'm telling you. She says, I wish I had time to tell y'all how a person used to be so mean to me, and I kept giving it to God. And now that person hugs me when they see me. Not you, Ting. I don't know. I ain't never been mean to you, so I know that. And I kept giving it to God, and now the person hugs me. If that don't sound country, the person hugs me when they see me. All right. Well, that is our show. It is at an hour and 17 seconds exactly. And I definitely have enough questions here for us to be able to do accountability part 2, accountability 202, we'll call it. So we'll do another part 2 on that. Next week, join us. We will do our part 2 on religion versus spirituality. Okay. We'll do a part 2 on that. Got an interesting video to show you, and we got some other angles of that question as well. And we want to leave you with some final comments, and we'll start out in Anna, Texas, with your final thoughts and a goodbye to these good folks. You and Anna. God,
I was about to do my carbonette.
Rucker Park in the house. What's up, Queen3 King? Rucker Park. And we noticed, she joined us on the forecast last night, and we noticed them bangs that she used to have. Ben said she took them bangs and did like that. Look at that. They gone now.
Leave her alone.
We appreciate you, Rucker Park. We appreciate you. I'll be on time next week. Yeah, do that. And I'm glad you said that. This is a podcast. In the words of H-Rap Brian Williams, this is a podcast. You don't ever miss this show because you can go back on YouTube. Right. You can go back on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, and now Amazon Prime. And you can look at all of these shows. So you ain't ever got to miss a show. You can go back and watch it. Okay. And with that said, we also ask that you hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't done so, and hit that notification bell. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend.
Right.
So then we'll get back to, let's see, I know that, man. We'll get back to our final goodbyes. And again, Anna, final thoughts and tell the people. Goodbye.
No, I was just going to tell them that I am.
I'm so glad we had this time together. That's what she was going to do.
Yeah,
she hadn't had a warm milk yet.
I wasn't going to sing it. I was just going to tell them. I'm just so glad that we've had this time together. But no, really and truly, though, I want to tell everybody out that comes, because every week we have somebody that brings somebody else in to our podcast.
Right.
And I just want to say that I'm extremely grateful. I know my siblings are grateful too for you guys, but I'm really grateful for you guys. And I want y'all to continue to pray for us, and that God gives us topics that people actually need to hear, and that can help them in their spiritual walk with him and in their everyday spiritual walk with him. And I just pray for one another, because you never know what somebody is going through, whether it's one of us, somebody on the podcast that's listening. So let's always keep in mind that there's always somebody going through something, but it's not what we're going through, it's how we go through it. And our part is to be an encouragement to somebody else. It's not all about us, it's about other people. So lifting others up and making them feel good. So I'm just grateful for the people that we have that support our show. And that's all I want to say.
Lord, lift us up where we belong. Mika.
Y'all can't never be serious. Y'all are so. Mika, I don't even see your head.
I'm just so glad we had this conversation about accountability, but at the end, forgiveness and accountability going together. I've never really thought about that. So that was good. Can we talk about?
Oh my gosh, they ain't boyfriend and girlfriend.
Oh my gosh,
Miss Kitty, I thought we discussed putting your name so everybody know who you is out there.
I just Leo. Just thinking about accountability and forgiveness, commingling is such a great point. So that's going to give me something to continue to ponder upon. And neither are negative words, and both come with huge benefits.
There you go.
So I'm just a nobody trying to tell everybody
Hey, Shay.
Now somebody
Praise the
who
Hallelujah.
can change anybody.
Wow.
Yes.
That's
Glory.
it, sister.
Hallelujah.
Sunday.
Hey, Baba Sando.
Feel my help.
Yeah.
Coming on.
All right. All right.
Yeah, gotta catch that Holy Ghost for real.
All right. Yeah, you keep playing. You'll be the first
Don't
one
play
to
in
cry.
church.
You're
Don't
the
play.
easiest one to cry on there. And you gonna get to playing. And so you know it. All right. All right.
I love you too.
You love her so much you ain't even spell her name right. And it's right there on the screen. All you had to do is copy it.
Don't listen to him.
Just
Miss Kitty, I am.
All right, Lily, on you.
No, I think I echo both of my sisters. First, thank you so much for the support. Even Miss Kitty this weekend, we got to see her this past weekend, and she said, "You guys cracked me up." She was like, "Y'all crack me up. Y'all are crazy." So I just think that we'll continue. I know that we'll continue to foster an environment where we laugh and have those serious discussions. So I think it's super important, and that's really how we reach.
Talking about his sister.
Talking about your sister.
And then she followed up with shit your tail up. Right there. Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh.
But I think that forgiveness, that was a huge takeaway for me tonight. Is forgiveness, because I think as a community, we're slow to forgive too. So I think that is one of those things where we have to continue to not only take accountability, but that forgiveness piece, don't leave that behind, because that's just as important. So you sleep a little better at night. I refuse to let people live rent-free in my head, and over here with not having to deal with that and not worry about what that person is doing. Because you may say, I'm not worried about what they're doing, but every time it's brought up to you, it hurts up, and you all angry all over again. So they are right in your head. Yeah. So that was a huge takeaway for me tonight, but I enjoyed you guys.
Yeah, wow. She said, I'm not going to let people live rent-free in my head. And that's big. You know, Mama used to talk about walking around long-faced, right? Stuff like that, you know.
Yep.
Let's see. Andrew Lynn, what I tell you about your mom? And she responds, says, I'm sick of this. That's it. Yeah, I think he was saying that's it about what Lily said, you know, rent free in your head. That's strong. So for me, one of my biggest notes in prepping for this show is that the realization that as human beings, our minds are rigged to self-justify. Right. You know, that is a survival mechanism, right? You know, as humans, we have these physical survival mechanisms and we have these mental and physiological survival mechanisms, right? Our minds being rigged to self-justify. For instance, when somebody else do something to us, we are on them and we are constantly, you know, they shouldn't have did that. They knew this, they knew that, et cetera, et cetera. When we do something, we're like, well, I had this going on. Or I had this going on, or I wasn't meaning to do that, or I wasn't thinking about whatever, right? So we're going to self-justify our actions, but we're going to crucify somebody else, right? So again, I think that'll lead into our part 2 on this discussion. I think it was meaty, and I think that there's a lot of meat on the bone, and I think this goes to a couple of different areas. But again, as the panel has said, you know, for all of our loyal supporters, for our new viewers, we appreciate you. And join us again next week, Tuesday, 7:30 p.m., Queen3 King, where we'll discuss religion versus spirituality, part 2. Peace in the Middle East.
Bye.
Are we smiling or what are we doing?
The Queen Bee has arrived.
You know. What's your out then? So I'm gonna start with both of y'all's hands right here.
Look for my stomach.
Look Like if you can